everybody, we have a massive update to talk about today with Squad version 8, including new vehicles, new faction units, and plenty more. So let's dive in, but first hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and drop a comment down below about what you're most excited about, and let's get to it. Something that I talked about in our recent leak video was that the USA needs an armored division, and they're getting that in the 37th Armored Regiment, 3rd Armored Division. If you've been keeping up with my unit breakdowns, you know this was a hole in the USA's lineup, but I expected OWI to remedy this at some point, and it looks like they have, with some additional tracked vehicles for the US Army. They're expected to have the M1A2 Abrams main battle tank, supported by M113A3 APCs, which is new to the game. These are going to be serving as logistics vehicles and armored personnel carriers for infantry. They're also going to have the M7A3 B-Fist IFV, which is basically a Bradley without the tow ATGM. Next, they're going to have the 1st Cavalry Regiment mechanized unit. This will use the Bradleys as IFVs. They'll also have the M113A3 APCs, again as logistics vehicles and armored personnel carriers. They will also get an MK19 variant, meaning one will have a grenade launcher, and they'll receive the new M1064A3 mobile mortar carrier, something else we talked about in the leak video I posted not too long ago. Now, they will get that mobile mortar carrier at the cost of not having deployable mortars on their FOBs, which kind of makes sense. Next up, we get the support unit for the USA, which is the 497th Combat Sustainment Support Battalion. They'll have up to 3 logistics vehicles, supported by light vehicles and the new M113A3 APCs, along with mobile mortar carriers. They can actually deploy an extra hab and ATGM similar to other conventional faction support units. Now we're going to have some new equipment like the MK19 grenade launcher emplacement. This is going to be used not only by the US, but also by the Australian Defence Force, the British Armed Forces, the Canadian Armed Forces, the Turkish Land Forces, USA, and USMC on FOBs, especially for air assault or light infantry units. You'll also get the M113A3 APC that we mentioned before. It appears that there will be a few variations, including an unarmed logistics variant, an M2 heavy machine gun variant, and an MK19 automatic grenade launcher variant. You're going to see this vehicle popping up for the US Armored Unit, the Mechanized Unit, and support units. The Canadian Armed Forces will also get the logistics variant for their Armored Unit, and the Turkish Land Forces will have it for their Armored and Mechanized units, specifically the logistics variant. Of course, we're going to have the M1064A3 mortar carrier. This is a mortar carrying variant of the M113A3 APC. It's going to have a powerful 120mm mortar mounted on board, and it'll appear on the USA mechanized and support units along with the TLF support unit. Next up, we have the M7A3 B-Fist IFV, which is basically a Bradley without the ATGM, but this is going to be featured in the USA Armored Unit and will appear on the mechanized unit. You're also going to get MK19 vehicle variants. So for the USA and USMC, they're going to have access to a Humvee with an MK19 and a MATV with an MK19. These will appear on the USA Air Assault Unit and the USA and USMC Light Infantry units. The USMC is also going to get a boat with an MK19 on it for their Amphibious Assault Unit. The Turkish Land Forces are also getting some new stuff, including a Logistics Command Battle Group. They're going to have 3 full-size Logis supported by Cobra 2 MRAPs, ACV-15 APCs, and receive the new M113A3 mobile mortar carrier. They're also going to get a reskinned UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter with PKT door guns available in the air assault and support units for the TLF. The TLF will also see an update to their camo, and something we should mention while we are here talking about that faction is that they'll be getting a hat kit with the Carl Gustaf within their air assault unit, which is a big upgrade. Next up, we have the Russian Ground Forces, who's going to be getting a new unit in the 205th Separate Motor Rifle Brigade, which is a mechanized unit. This unit will focus on the new BMP-3 and BMP-2M infantry fighting vehicles, supported by the MTLB APCs as logistics vehicles and APCs. So let's talk about some of these new vehicles. The BMP-2M IFV, it's a modern update to the BMP-2. It's going to use an additional weapon system, being the automatic grenade launcher and quadruple Cornet ATGM launcher system. This is going to replace the Conkers on the BMP-2. It's going to be available for the Russian Ground Forces mechanized unit. The RGF is also going to get the BMP-3M IFE, another modern upgrade to the BMP series with a 100mm cannon, 30mm autocannon, and a coax machine gun, along with Bastion anti-tank guided missiles. This will be available for the Russian Ground Forces Mechanized Unit and the Amphibious Assault Units. The Russian Ground Forces are also going to get a new main battle tank in the T-90A. This is a third-generation tank meant to replace the T-72. It'll use armaments similar to the T-72B3, but it's going to have upgraded armor on the front, side, and turret. This vehicle will be available for the RGF armored, combined, and motorized units, along with the light infantry unit. Finally, the RGF is also getting the BMP-1AM. This is going to be an upgraded BMP-1 variant. It's going to use the same auto cannon turret that the BTR-82 has. It's also going to replace the BMP-2 on the RGF armored unit and appear on the mechanized unit. A couple other smaller additions to some factions would be that the insurgents and the IMF are going to get a techie truck with a mounted Cornet ATGM. This is going to be added for the IMF and INS light infantry unit and motorized units. The Russian VDV is going to get an impact frag grenade as the standard fragmentation grenade added to the entire faction. The Canadian Armed Forces TAP-V is going to receive a slight adjustment, being that it's now going to have a 40mm automatic grenade launcher in the C16 and a 7.62 C6 machine gun. And this will be the only TAP-V variant moving forward. Now, there's a significant overhaul happening in Squad version 8, specifically to the anti-tank guided missiles. If you saw the Squad newsletter, you know that this is something that OWI has been working on. They even talked about it in a recent Q&A. According to OWI, they've reworked the existing ATGMs to extend their features, introduce various nuances, and update their visual effects. Based on this write-up, it appears that wire-guided ATGMs like the TOW will have an easier time hitting moving targets, but are less accurate at long range compared to beam-riding ATGMs like the Cornet. Now, something that OWI mentions, which I think is pretty interesting, is that their goal with this is to move these weapons away from being effective anti-aircraft weapons that opens up the door to more dedicated anti-air weapons in the future. So wire-guided ATGMs will have the strengths of easier to hit moving targets without losing guidance. Weaknesses are terrain obstacles can foul the wire, and they have less effective range and accuracy than beam riders. They cannot fire on the move. Whereas beam riding ATGMs, their strengths will be greater accuracy at long range, can be fired on the move, and more resilient guidance system. Their weaknesses is that it is harder to hit fast-moving targets at medium and long ranges and is vulnerable to IR smoke countermeasures. And what that means is that the smoke launchers on vehicles have seen a bit of an update. The smoke will now confuse guidance systems of ATGMs, causing a loss of guidance that will likely cause the missile not to hit its target. The distance that the smoke launches has also been increased from 25 to 50 meters. This is only specific to smoke launched out of a vehicle's canister launchers, not handheld smoke or driver smoke. Now, in addition to all of this, there is a massive list of gameplay changes, and I'll link the massive list down below. But we'll go over a couple things that stood out to me. The first thing that stands out to me is that OWI has made some QOL improvements to vehicle recovery. So if you're trying to flip that vehicle or reset that vehicle, they've done some things that'll make your life a little bit easier by speeding up the process, making it much less frustrating. They've gone in and actually removed the helicopters from all conventional armored units except for the VDV, which will continue to operate a helicopter, but on a 30-minute delayed spawn. We've talked about the hat kit already for the TLF, but this also is going to affect some other groups. For the light infantry and air assault units of most conventional factions, they are going to have 4 hat kits available instead of just 2. This doesn't change how many hat kits can be in a squad, but it does balance the playing field against armored units. The PLA Marine Corps' uniforms are getting an adjustment, with the blue on those uniforms getting toned down. Hopefully this will be helpful in actually camouflaging some of these units. Next are some fortification updates for conventional forces on their FOBs. For example, conventional support units have a max of 6 bunkers and 4 towers per FOB, whereas other conventional units will have a max of 4 bunkers and 2 towers. A couple other unit changes include the reduction of T-72s for the VDV armored group from 2 to 1. The intent here is to reduce overall firepower for the unit, which had 2 T-72s in addition to 2 Spruts. This is also going to be a change made for the USMC's armored group, reducing the LAV-25 from 2 to 1. Now, that's just a few things off this list. There are definitely some gunplay updates and things like that you should check out on the full list. There's also a lot of bug fixes that are implemented into this update. You can check this out along with the other gameplay updates in the link below. There's also going to be a couple of map updates, some specific to certain maps. For example, Manakugan is going to have a new invasion layer. Kohat is also going to see 2 new layers for random advanced and secure and invasion. But another big update is that all large random advanced and secure layers will have 7 flag layouts. Whereas smaller maps like Korra, Fool's Road, Kevkan, Mestia, Samari, and Logar will still have 5 or 6 flag layers. And it wouldn't be an update without some new weapon skins. This is a new pack that contains 3 weapon skins for use with the VDV and USMC factions. You'll have the new Nettle weapon skin for the VDV AK-12 on woodland biomes. You'll have the Mirage weapon skin for USMC M16A4 rifles on desert biomes. And you'll have the Horizon skin, which is for the VDV SV98 marksman rifle on desert biomes. So real quick, what are my thoughts on this update before it releases? Well, first of all, I'm always excited to see some new vehicles integrated into squad. I'm also pumped that there are some new units added in for some of the factions that seem to be missing some stuff, specifically like the USA missing an armored unit. It's really cool to see some of the support vehicles also getting some love with some new vehicles, especially the mortar carrier, which I think is going to offer some fun opportunities to do some different things. I'm curious to see how a lot of these vehicles are going to fit in to some of their respective units, especially with the Russian ground forces and all of these new Vics and even the T-90. How is that going to stack up against something like the Abrams? But it's always nice to see updates and tweaks and new units added to the roster. I will say that a lot of the gameplay updates look pretty great, and the bug fixes are always welcomed, of course. Now, if we go to the ATGM rework, I'm seriously curious about how this is going to play out. It's going to raise the bar in terms of difficulty for how to use an ATGM, but now you actually have a defense when you're in a vehicle. It's not just going to be shoot smoke and hope they forget where I am. But I do think you're going to have to practice how to utilize the ATGMs now, which means there's going to be a little bit of a need for a higher skill level to utilize it, which could result in less ATGM emplacements being utilized in general. That's kind of problematic in the sense that it's going to go against what some of the units really need to function well on any given layer. And that's not even touching on the fact that some vehicles have these ATGMs, so I guess we'll see how that plays out, along with so much of what's included in these patch notes and in this video. So I hope you enjoyed the quick look at what's coming to Squad this week. I'll have some more coverage and some more thoughts on this update soon as it begins to roll out and I get my hands on it. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can be up to date on new videos. Leave a like, drop a comment down below, and I'll catch you next time.